In this video, I'll show you some tips on how to prepare for the release of Dawntrail that will make you some gil or save you time whenever the expansion comes out. And I promise you that by the end of this video, you'll have found something that you did not think of ahead of time that you'll really want to get done within the next 2 months. First of all, if you're planning on playing Viper or Pictomancer, you're going to want to prepare level 80 and level 90 sets for them. That's because both of the new jobs will start at level 80, which is something a lot of people tend to forget. If you have a ninja and a caster at level 90, then you already have the level 90 sets out of the way, but you can also go to this NPC in Yulmore and buy an entire level 80 Tomestone set. This way, when Dawntrail comes out, you can immediately massively improve the gear that you start off with, which should then speed up your leveling process to level 90 to catch up to everyone else. Speaking of Tomestones, these are obviously going to change with Dawntrail. However, once you reach level 100, you'll be able to turn all comedy Tomestones into the next lower tier, meaning the current equivalent of the causality Tomestones. Which means for the release of Dawntrail, you should ideally be capped on comedy Tomestones because that will give you an immediate gearing advantage. You could also cap your causality Tomestones and your poetics, especially if you haven't played the game in a while and you're lacking in current Tomestone gear, because all of the item level 650 gear that you can buy from vendors right now will be available for poetics immediately when the expansion comes out. You'll be able to exchange all of these Tomestones at the NPC Oriana in Modona. One very efficient and fun way of farming current Tomestones before the expansion is doing hunt trains. Basically, there's one player called a train conductor who leads players from one A rank to the next, and each one that you slay in an Endwalker zone is going to give you both comedy and causality Tomestones. I'll provide a link down below for a Discord server called Loop, where you can find out more about these hunt trains and join them whenever they're available on your server. And once you're in, you can also ask people to invite you to a link shell so you get these notifications in-game in the future. Another way for preparing to level Pictomancer and Viper immediately when Dawntrail comes out is going to be collecting a bunch of side quests and completing the objectives but not turning them in. This way you can have up to 30 side quests ready to turn in immediately when Dawntrail launches, which should give you a good chunk of XP to level all of these jobs. Another trick to get an immediate half a level worth of XP instantly when Dawntrail comes out is grabbing a Wondrous Tails book from Chloe Aliapo in Idleshire. She'll ask you to complete various content to collect stamps, by the end of which you can turn it in, which will give you a big chunk of XP. You'll be able to turn this book in for 2 weeks, so basically the Tuesday before the launch you'll want to grab it, complete all of the objectives, and then hold on to it until the expansion is out. Both of these tips are going to be really useful for all of those who want to level Pictomancer and Viper immediately before doing the story. Because both of the new jobs are DPS, we're going to see massive shortages in the queue for tanks and healers. Everyone unlocking these jobs at level 80 will be looking to do roulettes for a lack of other leveling methods in Endwalker. One way to deal with that will be bribing a tank or a healer to queue with you, but it's very likely that when Dawntrail comes out, they'll be busy doing the main story for themselves. So personally, I think your best bet of leveling these jobs in a timely manner is going to be spamming trust dungeons, meaning you're going in with the NPCs. However, to do that, you need to make sure that your trusts are leveled. I personally never do trust dungeons, so mine are still sitting at level 71, which if I want to play either Viper or Pictomancer, I'm really going to have to deal with before Dawntrail. If you do want to level via regular roulettes, then you should make sure to unlock as much of the content in the game as possible before the release of Dawntrail, because more availability of different dungeons is obviously going to mean that you get faster queues. For everyone else who doesn't care about leveling Viper or Pictomancer immediately, I would strongly consider leveling a healer or tank on the side using roulettes, because you're going to get the adventurer need bonuses pretty much every time. So that's going to be a good amount of gil and extra materia that you'll be needing at level 100. Now let's move away from leveling and talk about how you can make some easy gil whenever Dawntrail comes out. First of all, right now is a good time to store and stack up on any and all materia that is available in the game. If you remember at the NPC Mutamix, where you originally learned materia melding, whether you remember it or not, you can actually do something called materia transmutation. This lets you turn 5 pieces of unwanted materia into another type of materia that can even be of a higher level, meaning all of your level 9 and 10 materia that are basically worthless right now have a chance of giving you materia that might be worth 10,000 to 15,000 gil whenever Dawntrail comes out. This is a much better use of materia than trying to sell it for 500, 400 gil on the market board. What you'll also find is that some people undervalue current materia, specifically Materia 7, which is going to be used in pentamelts all throughout Dawntrail. If you check the market board on your current server, you'll probably find that Materia 7 for gatherers and crafters is suspiciously higher priced than the other materias. And that's because below a certain threshold it's being bought up by players who are stocking up for Dawntrail, who are planning to use it themselves or sell it for 3 or 4 times the price. Just make sure you don't pay over the odds, and remember other people are watching this video too, and they'll be stacking up in just the same way. Another way to prepare for the next materia boom is to level your island sanctuary, make sure you get as much of the currency as possible by completing your weekly workshop, and then storing that currency until Dawntrail comes out, because you'll be able to target buy specific level 9 materias that are in demand on the market board using it. Next, if you want to make another easy chunk of gil, you're going to want to cap your Bicolor Gemstones. If you go into your main menu under Travel, you're going to find a menu called Shared Fates. And this is a system that encourages people to complete fates in return for a currency called Bicolor Gemstones. You can farm Bicolor Gemstones by going into any Shadowbringers or Endwalker zone and completing any fates that you find. Last expansion, these gemstones were used to buy various materials, for example Ovibos milk, which was used in various crafts, such as collectibles that crafters used to farm scripts, but also some of the best in-demand raid food available, meaning the price of Ovibos milk was obviously through the roof during the expansion launch weeks. The prices for these were actually so good that during the launch weeks, various players were just farming fates for Bicolor Gemstones the entire time. So it's a great idea to try and cap these, but also when Dawntrail comes out, you should consider doing some fates and getting Bicolor Gemstones if the prices for materials are good. Something else that you can prepare without having to be a crafter is Grand Company Seals. This is the currency that you can use to buy various materials at your respective Grand Company. There's a good chance that there will be new materials added to this Grand Company vendor that will be used in crafts all throughout the game. And it's just generally a good resource to have either way. So before Dawntrail comes out, you should make sure to get this as high up as possible. Ideally, you should be capped, and then just be on the lookout for any materials that surge in price. All of this is going to be very time critical, so within the first few days of the launch, you should be checking this out if you want to get as much gil as possible out of this. Everyone will be in a rush to make all of the new gear and various other consumables, so very rich crafters and very impatient players who haven't prepared are going to be paying over the odds for all of these materials. What's great about Grand Company Sealed specifically is that you won't have to stop at the cap, but you can actually prepare various gear to turn in whenever the expansion comes out to make even more Grand Company Seals. Whether you get that from running dungeons and getting gear drops and storing them until the launch, by collecting Anapasea's gear tokens that you can then turn in for gear, which you can then turn in for Grand Company Seals, by farming sacks of nuts from hunt trains, which you can then turn in for gear that is accepted in the Grand Company as well. But just know there are various ways of preparing a huge amount of Grand Company Seals if you feel like that's going to be where the gil is. While you're already at the Grand Company, you should also remember that you actually have an adventurer squadron. These are the guys in the back room that you've forgotten about for the last 1.5 years, and they're just waiting for you to send them on the next priority mission that's going to provide you with more valuable buffs. Things like the Squadron Battle Manual for 15% combat XP bonuses, the Squadron Engineering Manual, the Squadron Survival Manual, or the Priority Seal Allowance, which will give you 15% more Grand Company Seals, which is going to be super handy if you're going to turn in a bunch of gear. Now keep in mind that these are the same buffs that your free company are using. However, remember that they are only using 2 of these, so anything that they don't use you can supplement using the squadron buffs. So it might be worth checking in with the FC leader to figure out which buffs they're going to use during the launch, and then target farming the other buffs using the squadron priority missions. Another consumable that you'll want to prepare either by crafting it or buying it on the market board is Spirit Bond potions. These will increase the rate at which your gear gets Spirit Bond, meaning you'll get to extract more materia off the gear on average. One of these potions lasts 180 minutes, and they are really easy to make and should be fairly cheap on the market board. And if you play the game a lot whenever Dawntrail comes out, I would not be surprised if you make several 100,000 gil worth of materia extra that you wouldn't have made otherwise. So just keep running these, especially if you're spam crafting or if you're running dungeons. And then remember to always extract materia whenever your gear turns white down here. If you haven't already, another minor thing that you can do is complete a bunch of hunts that give you allied seals that you can exchange for Aetheryte Tickets. You can find the vendor selling these inside of your Grand Company again, and then you can set up the automatic ticket usage whenever you teleport by clicking on the cogwheel up here. This will allow you to reduce or even eliminate teleportation costs, which will be great because when you're doing story, you're likely teleporting around a lot. For all crafters, there are a few tips that can pay off massively. First of all, you could pre-craft a bunch of collectibles that you can turn in for scripts. If you have inventory space, whether that's in your retainer or in your actual inventory, consider dedicating a few pages just for collectibles and just spend a few hours before Dawntrail crafting these, because we are pretty much guaranteed to have some materials that are going to come from scripts for various new level 100 endgame crafts. These are going to be in high demand, which is whenever you can turn in all of your collectibles to make some easy gil. The other advantage is that you'll get a bit of XP for every turn in, allowing you to get a head start on whatever crafter you choose. The other way you can make a decent chunk of XP is by crafting Grand Company's supply and provisioning mission items, which people will be using to level up their crafters. These are already going for massively overvalue on the market board because impatient crafters just go there, pick up the item and then turn it in for a decent amount of XP. But when the expansion hits, these should also go through the roof in terms of price. If you plan on doing a lot of crafting during Dawntrail, right now is a good time to stock up on the various crystals, whether you gather them yourself or you buy them off the market board, because there's a good chance that these will go up in price over time. More people crafting means higher crystal usage, and very few people are willing to gather crystals during the launch weeks because there are just so many other things to do. So stocking up right now so you don't have to worry about it when Dawntrail comes out is going to be a good idea. This way you can also take advantage of the price fluctuations and crystals and buy at a good time, rather than being forced to buy whenever Dawntrail comes out and you need to be crafting at that moment. With that out of the way, these were all of the tips. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you leave a like if it was helpful, because it helps me out in return. For now, thanks for watching, and I hope I'll see you in Dawntrail. Peace.